so to speak, comes to the question, should Adam be created? This one says that God said to the angels, okay, I am going to show you that man's wisdom is greater than yours. How's he going to show us that? God shows the angels by bringing all of the animals in front of the angels to be named. And the angels can't do it. They look at this fluffy little thing, going rough, and they say, I don't know. What is it? Okay? They look at this this other animal, a little tiny ant. What is? I don't know what to call it. What should we call it? Okay. So then it says that God brings the animals in front of man, and he names them. He names all of them. And the angels are dumbfounded. They say, wow, this man is brilliant. So we discussed this before in the community, but the question is very obvious. It's not that hard to name an animal. Yeah, if he's the fluffy thing, you call him fluffy. If he's scrawny, you call him scrawny. Why is he like, wow, man is so brilliant, he knows how to name animals? And the answer is, the sages tell us that Adam named the animals based on their essence, which the angels could not do. The angels would, what they would do is they would go. Michael just telling me that the YouTube has just joined us. Okay, good. Welcome, YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Summarize where we're up to. We're talking about the creation of man. We said some of the angels opposed it, some of it were for it. We explained what angels mean. They're not the misconception that people have, but the concept of spiritual laws that God created. And some would be for man, meaning that man would abide by them, and some would be against man. That's what we're talking about. So we said that God wanted to show the angels that man's wisdom is greater than theirs, and therefore it says God brought the animals in front of the angels. They couldn't name the animals, and then God brought the animals in front of man, and he named them. And the angels were dumbfounded. And we said, what was such a brilliant idea that he could name animals? Doesn't seem so hard. That's what we're up to. So we said that what was so amazing was that man named the animals based on their essence, who they were. Okay? Now, if you don't speak Hebrew, this won't work, because there is no special quality of the idea of the word dog or the word bull. It's not. But in Hebrew, every single name has a tremendous meaning. Okay? The word nimala, which means an ant. Okay? See, Emma? The word ant, nimala, is from the word amel. What's amel? Amel means to be toil. The Talmud says the ant gathers more food than he can eat in his entire lifetime. Oh, good to see you, Rabbi Goldberg. Good to see you from Israel. The ant gathers more food than he'll eat in his entire lifetime. But he thinks maybe God will let him live longer, and he will thereby eat the food. Which doesn't sound like a very wise program, Take it easy, retirement. He wants to. No, the reason why is because the ant's quality is amelut. It's the constant wanting to build. He's building. So man saw Adam saw the ant, and he said, wow, he is the idea of work, of wanting to construct. He saw the dog, the kelev. Kelev stands for kol lev, all heart. The dog is loyal, right? He saw the chatul. The chatul is the cat. The word chatul is the word chitul, which means lachatel means to clean yourself. The cat has his distinction. So man named the animals based on their essence. And then God said, what do you call yourself? And he said, call myself Adam. I call myself Adam. Why? Because I am from the Adamah, from the earth. Now, there's an obvious question we've talked about before in the community, which is that's bizarre. Because if he names the little doggy based on his unique qualities, why is man calling himself based on the earth? He has a soul too. So call himself soul man. Why are you calling yourself earth? So there's many, many answers to that. I want to give a brief answer today. What the great Maharal explains. The Maharal says the reason why man named himself Adam, come from the Adamah, from the earth, is because earth is all potentiality. Earth, you plant it, things will grow. You don't plant it, things won't grow. So man's greatness is that he makes himself. And no other creation can do that. The spiritual forces called the angels, the word for angel in Hebrew is the word malach. Malach is from the word melacha, work, action. The angel is a spiritual force. Just like there are physical laws of nature, laws of gravity, there are spiritual laws how the world works. The angels are thereby not free will entities at all. A malach is from the word malacha. It does what it has to do. An animal, a behemah. The word behemah is a conjugation of two words. Ba, ma. Ba means in it. Ma is what it is. The word behemah means it is in it what it is. It is programmed. Man called himself Adam because he comes from earth. He is all potential. He can build himself and make himself to whatever he wants to be. We have that power. We just don't believe it. Good to see you, Libby. Good to see you. Welcome. So we have that power, and it's really important to understand it. It's a fascinating thing. The Mussar rabbis tell us. They say that man is the last thing in creation. Although it's not fully true, his soul was the first thing in creation, but his body was the last thing in creation. Now, there's a few reasons why that happens. The Mussar, the ethical lesson for us is the Talmud says, Rashi brings it. The Talmud says that if man abuses the world and does not use it properly, then we say to him, listen, why do you think you have such a power? The ant is created before you. Okay, so on one level, man's being last in creation gives him a certain amount of humility. His being the first in creation means that he is the beginning and the end. It means that he has the job of raising all of creation. We've talked about it many times. Very important. Very important. From a Jewish perspective, every human being, everyone, Jewish, not Jewish, every human being must take the world and use it for a greater purpose. You have no rights to abuse the world. Human beings are the pinnacle of the world, but not in the way that a godless view is that we are humanitarians, we're in charge, we can do whatever we want to do. No, you can't. You are the pinnacle of creation in the sense that you are the ones who could take the whole world and make it purposeful. Oh, my friend Gershon, good to see you. So, and as I mentioned last week, I love it. I say it all the time, but I love this. Every Friday night when we sing the song, the Chunran al Hashem, come let us sing praises to Hashem. And you know, if my friend here, JD, was in a band with me many years ago, right? We were in a band. We would come sing songs to Hashem. That song we sing on the night of every Friday night, that psalm was written by Adam. And he said to the whole creation, come, let us sing to God, the source of our creation. And that's the job of humanity, is to go and to take everything in creation and to elevate it. So man's created in the beginning and at the end. He is Adam. He's from the Adamah, from the earth. He's all potential. He can make himself be great, or God forbid the opposite way. Okay? Now, I wanted to say one other idea that the Mussar rabbis tell us, the rabbis focusing on the ethical development of human being on this point. I think this is a beautiful point. I love this. I wanted to share it. Man's being the last thing in creation also, although his soul was the first, his body being last, teaches us another very important lesson. There's a book called the Sefer Ikrim. It was a great work, medieval time. It went through the fundamental beliefs. And he says there an amazing thing. He says that if you look at the creation, you see there's, let's say, a turtle. The turtle's got a shell, okay, to protect itself. And then you look and you see a bull. He has horns. He could gore. The human being is the only one that could make a sword and a shield. And that means is that everything in the creation is limited. It has its quality. Man is the kola. Humanity includes everything. Being the last thing in creation means that everything that has preceded us, we take and we elevate. Okay? And where this is an amazing lesson is like the first law in the code of Jewish law is to wake up in the morning like a lion. Now, it's a very weird way to start a law book. You know, you're thinking a law book, you should say, wake up, with alacrity. Wake up. It doesn't say it says wake up like a lion. Oh, good to see you, Wade. Wake up like a lion. Why wake up like a lion? Because there is an analogy in the world. A human being can be a lion. A human being can take the qualities of everything in creation and use it. And that's a very, very deep point. Good to see you, Mary. Welcome. So it's a very deep point that you could take everything in creation and you could use it. You have the ability, there's a party that's a lion. And therefore you could turn on the party that has the lion quality and wake up like a lion. And that's why the Talmud says an amazing thing. It says that if the Torah wasn't created, a person could look in the creation and see all the things, and they would see the reflection of the Torah, what God revealed to us as the secrets of the world, in the creation itself. You could have learned. It says how not to steal from the ant. The ant is very careful. He takes they all build together, they all build their thing. You can learn from everything in creation how to function, because human beings could include all that has preceded. I have Rabbi Goldberg is giving us a quote here. He says that's correct. 100% what he said is that man has said the world was created for me, and he also has to go, and God prepared the whole table, and then he was the last thing created. Okay. Now, mankind being the last thing, human males being the last thing created is not exactly true. Last thing created is actually females. Now, that kind of depends on how we understand the creation of male-female. On one level, the Talmud and the Medrash learn that we created back-to-back. So that means that they were split and they were created into two entities. Again, the deeper meaning of this, as I mentioned last week, is very, very deep. But the idea is that back-to-back means that you don't want to be hit from the back. So you're sort of protecting yourself, but you have the ability to come together on your own. So they were created as an entity, and they were separated, and they were brought together. But there's a very interesting midrash. The midrash says that Adam, before God brought Eve to him, and he had experienced his wife, Chava. So it says that he was all the chayos. People sometimes mistranslate this and misunderstand it. It's really weird. They think he had relations with the animals. God forbid, that's not what happened. But it means that the mystics say that he looked into the nature of every creation that he just named. He looked at them and he said, okay, this is not my soulmate. This is not my soulmate. This one's too hairy. This one's got this, that. Bear, not going to work. He looks at, now what does that mean? The deeper meaning is that he looks at all the creations and he sees that they are individual components. None of them have the whole package. He hasn't had a soulmate yet. And that's the part where it says God puts him to sleep. And this is also a very deep mystical concept. They talk about the idea of tardema, of sleep. Before a person very often has to come to a higher level of experience, sometimes they have a time of concealment. And if you think about it, it's just a weird thing. When you think about that you sleep a third of your life, that's completely crazy. But what would happen really is that your soul was constantly powering through your body. It would just blow your body out. That's how the mystics explain it. And there's a time where the body needs to be silent and then restart again. And that's why, imagine if you'd never had a new day to start. It would be terrible. Sometimes when things are not going well, you just need to go to sleep and get up and start a new day. It says you're new in the morning. And that's literally what happens. When a person sleeps, part of their soul leaves, and then they're given their soul back. And then afterwards, they can keep going. But you start anew. So sometimes the greatest things you will attain have to have a period of sort of dozing before, a period where things shut down for the purpose of being rebuilt. And that's a principle in our lives. So sometimes if things get difficult, don't say, oh, this is terrible. It may be a time where you need to sort of rebuild, and that ushers in a period of slumber. So God puts Adam to sleep to create Chava. As I said, either from the rib, that's one explanation, or back to back. But Chava is now created. Now, why didn't he create Chava when he was awake? Well, one answer, as we just said, is that this is a great thing he's about to go through. He has to prepare for that level. And that's part of the deeper understandings. There's another level of understanding to this, which is interesting. This is brought in the Midrash. The Midrash says that they asked this question. The Romans asked this question to the rabbis. They said, well, your God's a thief. The Romans said. They said, what do you mean? It says, well, it said your God, took the rib and he created a Chava. So then the rabbi said back to the Romans, said, listen, so I had a thief come into my house last night. He took the silver and he brought me gold. That's not a thief. That's great. Thank you very much. He took something. He brought his wife. So no. The question I had is why do you have to put him to sleep? Why do you have to do it without him being aware of it? So in the story in the Talmud, in the Medrash, it says there that the sages said, listen, what happens when you invite someone over for a meal? Today when you want to go buy, if you're going to buy a steak, you buy it nicely packaged, in the store, and you come and you put it. It's very nice. But imagine you went to the back and you had to slaughter the animal and you're cooking it and then you feed it to the person that they wouldn't like it. So the Medrash says that God prepared Chava to bring in front of Adam, in that way where he wouldn't see in her preparation. And when the story was told, there was a Roman noblewoman that said, yes, I testify this is true. Why? She says, because I grew up very close to one of my relatives, cousin, whatever, we were very close. And he ended up marrying a woman that was much worse than me. It didn't have my personality, my looks, nothing, and it was all because he was so familiar with me that he couldn't marry me. And you see that happens very often. So Hashem puts Adam to sleep, and he creates Chava, or separates Chava, we say, and now he brings Chava, Eve, to Adam. Okay, and now he says, this is the time. Now, beforehand, all the other creations are only parts. But this is my other half. Okay? And he names her Chava. Why Chava? Because she's called the Em Kol Chai. She's the mother of all living things. She will have the quality of being the one who brings life into the world. Okay. Good. Now let's go on a little bit more. And now they're in the Garden of Eden, as we talked about. And it says in the text that they were not clothed. They were not clothed, and they were not embarrassed. Now, this again, people have unfortunately a lot of misconceptions. It's not that they were little kids and didn't understand. That's completely not correct. Adam and Chava are prophets. They're talking to God. They're called God's handiwork. So it's not correct. Why they didn't know they were naked was because they just didn't understand. No, that's not true. It says because they were not embarrassed. Now let me explain this. This is very, very important. What does it mean they were not embarrassed? Why weren't they embarrassed? And worse, if they weren't embarrassed, why eating a fruit makes you embarrassed all of a sudden? They ate the fruit, I'm not wearing any clothes? How did they... beforehand, they didn't know, and now they ate a fruit, and now they're embarrassed? I don't understand. What changed here? What happened that a minute ago they weren't embarrassed, now they are embarrassed? What really changed in Adam and Eve? Let's try to understand this. And we'll try to also explain the idea of the fruit. Okay, as I introduced this discussion, those who weren't here from YouTube earlier, we explained that the people understanding of Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden is completely wrong. It's not correct. It's not that they were not physical in the same way that we are. They were spiritual beings. Everything happened as it says. There's a tree, but it's not the physical way that it looks like to you. There is a tree that represents a concept, and it is a tree, and they're going to eat it. But it's not as physical as we're thinking. These are happening on very spiritual levels. So the tree, what is the tree? The Talmud discusses the tree. Again, now the Talmud says an amazingly deep thing. The Talmud gives 3 different explanations of what this tree might be. One says it was grape. One says it was wheat. And one said it was fig. There's another opinion in the Midrash. I'm going to leave it for now. But how could it be all 3? So this is my own personal answer. I like to say this answer. I think it's Karv Le'emes. I think it has aspects that I think make sense. And I've seen things that are similar in other kinds. I just added a few ideas here, but explaining other people's thoughts. So again, how could it be all 3? The answer is because really, this is a deeper concept of what the fruit is. It's not limited in the physical. It has an element of the wine, physical wine or grape quality. It has the element of wheat. It has the element of whatever the fig is, but in a more spiritual being. Okay, so what are these 3? What are these 3 things? So I think the following. Figs are considered a very delicious fruit. Very, very delicious. When you think about a person, there are different parts of a person. There is the physical part of him. There is the emotional part of him. And then there's the intellectual part of him. Okay? It's brought down in the mystical writings in different ways, but we'll call it now just the physical part, the emotional part, and then the mental, the sikhli. So figs are very delicious, and they have a certain attraction into the physical part of a person. Okay, and that's going to be, we're going to see the lure of the fig. The second way to understand it is that this is the grape, which is the wine. What is wine? Wine is the ability to go, and when you drink wine, you open up. Okay, we're coming to the holiday of Purim. Wine goes in, says secrets come out. When you drink wine properly, it's good. When you drink it improperly, it's really, really bad. Very bad. Okay? Second idea is it's wine. And the third idea is that so wine is parallel to the emotions. Because when people drink wine, all of a sudden they're like, comfortable in situations. They feel like they're a lion all of a sudden. So it's the emotional expression. The wine opens up. Wheat, it says in the sages, they say that a child, once he could eat a certain amount of bread, of wheat, of real food, that's the point where he knows to distinguish between mommy and daddy. He says mommy and daddy, that's the kids already older, and has a certain level of understanding of distinguishing things. This is my mother, my father. Before, everything is a blur. In the early stages, the child doesn't have the ability to discern in the mind. So the wheat, we could say, is comparable to the aspect of the mind. So the fig would be comparable to the physical, the wine would be comparable to the emotional, and the aspect of wheat would be comparable to the head, to the thoughts. So what does it mean that Adam had this tree of knowledge of good and evil? Let's use wine as the example, and it goes for everything. You drink wine. Now, is that good or bad? Well, it could be either one. It's actually, when a person drinks wine, either maybe that will open them up and they'll be more relaxed and they'll bring out something good in themselves, which is the concept of the holiday of Purim, bringing out your inner good essence. Or sometimes, God forbid, a person drinks wine, they can get very negative. The world can get very, very confused in their world. That's called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's a world where it's not that the world, it's not a place that's perfect. It's a place where good and evil now coincide. The physical pleasure could be used for good or bad. The wine could be used for, opening you up in a positive way or confusing you in a negative way. Your mind could use to go and to use it for good or for bad. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is not the tree of evil. It's a tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's the world where what's good could look bad and what's bad could look good. What is the inner spiritual aspect could be lost, or it could be revealed. The external part could be revealed, or it's a world that's mixed up. What's the main thing could be lost, or you can pull it out. You drink wine, and you could either pull out the good, or you can get totally confused. That's the tree that was good and evil. Okay, now, in one level explanation. Now, let's understand what my original question was. I said, how does it work? I could see you over, you can see. How does it work that Adam goes, Adam even not wearing clothes, and they're not embarrassed. They eat this tree of knowledge of good and evil, and now all of a sudden, they don't know what's going on. Oh, good to see you, Kiva. Welcome. Now all of a sudden they eat the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and they say, oh no, we're not wearing clothes. Now they realize, how come they realize it before? So let me explain to you. It's very, very deep and very, very simple, but it's very, very important. So understand a second. When Adam and Eve, before they enter into a world when good and evil are mixed up, what are they? They're spiritual beings. They are a soul that's exuding from the body. There is no break and distinction between body and soul in the sense that they're not pulling in different directions at this point. Okay? When a person goes and I don't know, they paint the Mona Lisa, you want to put a beautiful covering around the Mona Lisa, a beautiful frame. Okay? When we have the laws of writing a Torah scroll, we put a beautiful covering on the scroll. Why? Because the external should represent the internal. It's an expression of it. Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, their body and souls worked in a different way than we did. Okay, their souls were given to them with all of its brilliance. And the soul was now transforming the body. So much so that the mystics talk about that really there was a little bit to go. They were close. Their bodies were almost transformed from the power of their soul. The power of the soul came in so great, they were exuding light. They were beings of light in that sense. They were soul beings. They had a body, but the body was not corporal and working against the soul. It was now shining. The soul was shining through them. That's the deeper meaning why they weren't embarrassed. Why weren't they embarrassed? What should be embarrassed about? What if there's a beautiful soul and a beautiful encasing of the soul, what's to be embarrassed about? You know when you have to be embarrassed? I'll tell you when to be embarrassed. What's really embarrassing is if, let's say, you are an incredible soul and a person looks at you and all they see is the external body. You go show the guy the Mona Lisa, and he says, what a beautiful frame. He doesn't even notice the Mona Lisa. What could be more embarrassing? You go show a guy a Torah. He doesn't care about the infinite wisdom in the scroll. He cares about the cover. The cover is good as long as it's subservient and it is a vehicle for the internal beauty. Once Adam and Eve eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, a world where good and evil are mixed up, the wine that could confuse you. They eat in this world where the internal and external start to shift. All of a sudden they get caught. And when they see each other, they see the physical. There's nothing more embarrassing. If all I could see in a human being is their body, then I have sold them short. I've sold them for nothing. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the disaster of advertising and the society we live in, where a person is made into an object. No, a person doesn't go and say, they see a billboard and they see the car and the woman scantily dressed and they say, wow, I'm sure she's got a beautiful soul. They wouldn't go talk to her. They're not saying that because all they're seeing is an object, an external being. So when Adam and Eve, before they enter into the world where the good and evil are mixed up and what is external is known to be external, what is internal and the source is recognized, before they enter into that world, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Their bodies are beautiful, and it is not instead of their souls, it's an extension of who they are. So much so that Nachmanides says that even when they had relations, it was like doing every other beautiful commandment that they would do. There was no embarrassment. And you have these people today who they after news columns, all these things. The idea is so backwards. They're trying to go to a world that's not true. Because nobody there in a nudist colony, God forbid, goes and says, oh, a beautiful soul. They're not functioning that way. They're completely external. That is embarrassing. That means that you don't see who I am. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why it's amazing. The words in Hebrew for clothing all represent the same point. Let me go through them. There's a word in Hebrew for clothing called beged. Beged is the same word as boged. Boged means to betray. What's the connection between clothing and betrayal? Well, it's very easy. Because they put on the clothing on their physical bodies so the body wouldn't betray who they are. They're essentially a soul. Second word for clothing is called levush. Levush is a term, it's a conjugation of two words called levush means clothing. It's a conjugation of two words. One is lo bosh. Levush is lo bosh. Lo-bosh means no embarrassment. They put on the clothes because right now there was an embarrassment that the body is all I am. That's embarrassing. I'm much more than a body. Not because my body's not good. It's just because I'm much more than a body. You just sold me for tiny fraction of what a person really is. What is the third term for clothing? It's called a me'il. In modern Hebrew means an overcoat, but a me'il was the outer coat. The word me'il is a fascinating word. In Hebrew, the word me'il is connected with the word me'ilah. Me'ilah is a concept. When I take something that is for holiness, let's say I consecrated vessels for the temple, and I use them for something else, for a mundane purpose. That's called me'ilah. Why is that the same word as a coat? Because what an abuse of the body, when the body is supposed to be subservient to the soul, and it's holy because it's an extension of who I am, and now it's being made the main thing, that is a desecration of what's really holy. That's me'ilah. Fascinating. That's what happened. Once Adam and Eve entered into this world where the external and the internal was all not clear, then they had to put on clothes because they realized that they had changed. The world had changed, and they were not those beings of pure light anymore. And that's why the mystics say, it says that God created for them clothing of ore. The simple meaning is he gave them clothes. He made clothes for them. That's what Rashi says. He made clothes from the skins, clothing for them. The deeper meaning, it says, is that he gave them clothing of flesh, like this. Adam and Eve, before the sin, were spiritual beings, like we said before. We said last week. You looked at your fingernails on the Havdalah, on the service after Shabbat to separate Shabbat from the week, and you look at your fingernails and you remember Adam and Eve as being like translucent, their souls exuding from their bodies. And instead of clothing of light, he gave them clothing of flesh. And what's amazing in the Hebrew language, now in the Hebrew language, so all the secrets are there, but the word for light and flesh is the same word. It's the word or. But one is written with the letter Aleph, which is the spiritual letter. Aleph, the clothing of or, of light, with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the letter that's numerical value 1. It's the letter that has no sounds, ineffable. You can't say it. That's and the word Aleph, the letter Aleph actually means the great one, Aleph to our God. So they had clothing of light, of or, and then it changed to kosnos, clothing of or with an ayin. Sounds very similar, but this is the word for externality. It actually means the letter is the letter ayin, which is the eye, which sees out. So mankind had clothing of light, and when they fell, they became more physical. And we entered into the world as we know it today, which is a corporal world. Okay? And I want to tell you something fascinating here. You know, it says that Adam, and God said to Adam and Eve that they would die on the day that they ate the fruit. So everyone asked the question, well, he didn't die. So there's different explanations. One explanation was they were going to live forever, but they didn't. They lived a long time. It was one day in God's year, so to speak, the first two. So they lived a long time, but they weren't going to live forever anymore. They were going to die. That's one explanation. There's another deeper explanation that says they did die. They did die. And according to what I explained to you today, you understand it perfectly. They died because part of their soul actually left. The great Kabbalah lesson says a majority of their soul left them at that point, and that's why they were not exuding from their bodies. And that's really what death is. Death is the departing of the soul from the body. And that did happen. They no longer had access to their higher essence of their soul. Okay? That's right. Chaim Goldberg is quoting what I was referring to, the Torah Tosha Meir. Exactly. Very good. Okay, so that is a little bit of the background of the Garden of Eden, just again to get where we are. Spiritual dimension. Adam and Eve, at this point, God, as I said last week, He created the world in 6 days. It's going into the Sabbath. That would have been called the Great Sabbath. That would have been the time, the end of history. That would have led into the beautiful eternity, so to speak. But Adam and Eve had a job to finish. And, it sounds easy. Oh, one thing, don't eat the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It was very hard. Because all of the possible temptations, whether they were on the physical level, on this emotional or the psychological level, they were all there. They were all there. And that's the whole story of the Nachash, this entity called the serpent, which is very different than also different being. But that enticed them because the whole confusion was there, potential to be successful and to get into the great Shabbos and to lead us into eternity if man would have finished the job. And once he didn't, once he got sucked into it with the good rationalization, I'm going to see the good and evil. Like I said last week, I'll see the good and evil. The world makes sense, and I'll choose God. He had all the great rationalizations. But God said, no, you can't go into that. Once you go into that world, you're going to get sucked in. And he did. And when that happened, so the world changed. Things became more corporal, more physical. And as I mentioned last week, this is mind-boggling. The 6 days of creation, time elongated. And every day became 1,000 years. That's why we are now in the Jewish year, the year according to Jewish calendar, which is everyone's year, from the creation of Adam, 5,779. That means right now we are in the 6th day. From the day from the year 5001, we entered into the 6th day of creation, and a lot of big things are happening right now. And I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be shocking. This is shocking, but this is written in a book called Kol HaTur. It was a book written by the great Vilna Gaon, a genius from Vilna. He wrote this many years ago, early 1800s, and he describes the return to Zion, when the Jews will return to the land of Israel. And I want to tell you something, because it's just like, it's shocking when you read this there. He writes his book in the early 1800s. Land of Israel is desolate. Mark Twain's there in the 1840s, and the land is nothing there. And he says it's the most dreary, desolate land he's ever seen. And the Jews are starting to come back. And the Vilna Gaon himself, he actually tried to walk to Israel from Lithuania 2 times. And what happened was, both times crazy things happened. He saw God didn't want him to go, and he turned back. He sent his students there. I actually know his students who 100 years later, or 200 years later, they live in the old city of Jerusalem. They were sent by the Vilna Gaon in the early 1800s. And he told them to settle the old city of Jerusalem, which is where they live now. Students who came directly from him. And he wrote this book called Kol HaTorah. And in the book, he calculates that what I just told you, the calculations I said to you, that every day of creation, the 6 days of creation leading to the Sabbath, is parallel to 1,000 years. So he says like this. He writes there that Adam was created on the 6th day. Okay? Now we're going to do the brief math here. Imagine that you have a 24-hour day, which is now translated into 1,000 years. So it comes out, I think, 42 years and 8 months for every hour. Okay, fine. He calculates there, it says in the Talmud, it says when God created Adam, when he formed Adam and Eve, they were one entity in the beginning, as we said, and when he created him, and when he put him on his feet. Okay, the Vilna Gaon counting from the morning of the 6th day, which will be, the second half of the 5001 starts the 6th day, so we have 5,000, 500 is the night. Now we start the day. He calculates there which hour of the day of the 6th day God created Adam. When he put him on his feet, when he stood him on his feet, he says that calculates to the time the Jews will return to the land of Israel. And according to the calculation of the hours of the day turned into the ratio of the 1,000 years, he writes there in this book written in the early 1800s, the year will be 1948. That's pretty amazing, right? Fantastic. Okay, so fine. So that is the background of the Garden of Eden. And Adam and Eve now have eaten the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, in the story of the Garden of Eden, there's something that's very strange that happens. God says, okay, now I have to take Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, because if I don't, they may go and eat from the tree of life. Now that's a little strange, because who said that was bad? We didn't hear it was bad before. We heard not to eat the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Why didn't God want them to eat the tree of life now? Why would that have been bad? Let's try to understand. Very, very deep. I'm sorry, we're in the book of Genesis. You can't get much deeper than this. You can't get any deeper than this. So why do you want to eat a tree of life at this point? And the answer is like this. Is because once Adam had eaten the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and he had fallen into a world of non-full clarity, he lived in a world before of truth. There was truth or non-existence. Now there was good, evil, how good, how bad, scales mixed up. Once he fallen to that level, if he would have lived forever, he would never have fixed himself. So if he would have now taken the tree of life and he would have lived forever, he would have lived forever in the lower state. And that's a very, very deep thing why a person needs to die. Because at this point, we already are not, we are a confluence of different things, and to perfect ourselves, part of the process is death. But it doesn't mean we're finished. It means that's part of the process. Okay? So God says they cannot stay in the Garden of Eden lest they eat from the tree of life, and God exiles them from the Garden of Eden. Fascinating. I'm going to keep going, but if you have any questions about the Garden of Eden, now's the time to ask. Okay? Faye is here, so we're going to get some really good questions. And so is Akiva, and so is Robert. Harwitz. So if you have any questions about the Garden of Eden, I'm happy to hear them now. If you will need to digest it, listen to this recording again, digest, and you can send me your questions after. Now, after the Garden of Eden, it says that the next part of the text says that they gave birth to Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel. Okay. Now, I want to share this with you because I gave this class similar on this topic one time to a group of Noachites. We were talking about Book of Genesis. And a woman said to me something that I thought was fascinating. She said to me, I was showing them the text, inside the text, and she said to me, she also started smiling. I explained there, who did Cain and Abel marry? Right? Who they married? How were their children? So I showed her in the text, I was just explaining this. The text has what's called in Hebrew called a riboy, an extra word that comes to include something. And it says that by Cain, the word has the extra word et, and therefore it teaches us that Cain was born with one twin sister, who he married. And then by Abel, by Hevel, it says 2 times this extra word et, which the sages tell us he was born triplets, and he had 2 twin sisters, and they married their sisters. Okay, I do want to tell you this fact. When I showed this to this person, they were smiling ear to ear, and I said, "Why are you smiling?" So she says to me, "You don't understand. I when she was a kid in Catholic school, she asked this question." Where how did they have kids? And she told me she was kicked out. They said something was not right, that she should be asking such questions. After they determined that she was normal and she wasn't being inappropriate, they said, well, this is the mysteries. It's true, it is the mysteries, but thank God, God gave us the mysteries. So Cain and Abel, we're going to see how they're married. They get married, and they get married to their own sisters. Now, why is this really important? Rabbi Goldberg had a question or a statement. Yes, that's correct. Right? Goldberg has talked about the idea that that this is the way we function right now, which is that we are coming into this world right now like leaving the Garden of Eden, having to work with body and soul together. That's correct. Now, let's go back to Cain and Abel. So Cain and Abel right now, they're born, and it says in the text that Cain brought an offering. God didn't accept it, and then Abel brought an offering. God did accept it, and Cain became very upset. Now I want you to understand something. This is just so fascinating. The words for their names. In English, it's called Cain, but in the Torah, it's called Cain. Cain is the word koneh, to acquire. And that is really why he was named that. His mother, Chava, said, Kaniti Isar Hashem, I've acquired a man with God. I've been like a person who's now brought the first human being into the world. So I've acquired a man with God. I've made a man. Hevel, the word Hevel actually in Hebrew means vapor. Abel, which is the word Hevel, means vapor, nothing. And if you look at their philosophies, that's kind of what happened. Who was the one who initiated the offering? It was Cain. It was Cain. He said that, I'm somebody. I'm going to go and bring an offering to God. Abel, Hevel, who was thinking of himself as nothing, as vapor, said, I'm going to bring an offering to God? Who am I? So it really was Cain's idea, because he thought of himself as something. Now, thinking of yourself as something is important. It's crucial, actually, because otherwise you won't do anything in the world. But when you think of yourself as something, is a problem also, because all of a sudden, you know who I am. I'm very important. And that was Cain's downfall. Cain's downfall was the word to acquire, to be something, is also a word for jealousy. Because I deserve it. So he gets jealous that his offering is not accepted, and his brother, Hevel, Abel's offering is accepted. He's also jealous, as I said to you before, because Cain married his two twins, triplets, and he only had one wife. So he wants everything to himself, and he develops his jealousy. Now, why was his offering not accepted? So it says that he had a philosophy as follows. He said, listen, God gave me the world, it's for me, and so therefore I will bring God the stuff that I don't need, the worst stuff, the pits, the stems, the things that are not good. He was a farmer, and he would bring God the worst things. Now, even though there's some logic to it, God doesn't need an offering, but it represented a lack in his relationship to God. God doesn't need anything from us. He gives us, he creates the world, so he wants to give us good. So that's true, but it represented a lack in his whole psychology that he was like, I want the good stuff. And so his offering wasn't accepted. Abel, he made an offering of his choicest sheep. He was a shepherd. And it was accepted. Now God says to Cain, says, don't go there, don't. It says, don't let your face fall, don't go down. A person makes mistakes, you can get up. But if you don't get up from your mistakes, then it says that you're going to get stuck in this process. And that's exactly what happened. He did not want to pull out of it. And his jealousy grew and grew. And it says that he went with Abel, and took a Hevel into the fields. He started an argument with him. He says, so listen, I'm a farmer, the land's mine, so get off my land. Go jump in the air. And he started a fight with him. And he tried to kill him in different ways. He didn't know how his soul would leave. He's puncturing him in all these different ways. Finally, he kills him. And this is really a very crazy thing, because this is the first, we're talking about now, the beginning of creation, and things have gone awry. This pattern between the brothers is a repeated phenomenon throughout history. You may have jealousy of your own brothers. You may have brotherly issues. They happened. We had it again with the story of Jacob and Esau, right? And this is an old process. Okay, person that's prone to jealousy, person may be prone to resignation. So Cain could have used his trait of I'm a somebody for good, but he crossed the deep end. Abel, who didn't think he was that valuable to initiate the process, but humility could be a good thing, and then he eventually learns his lesson. He does bring the offering also, but there were various problems with how he brought it also, and he also is killed. Now, when he's killed right now, so Cain is in the world, but Cain is obviously not such a good person. And Hashem says that 7 generations he will be killed, because Cain goes and he prays, but he doesn't really repent. It says that he was kind of like, trying to just get away with it. It was like a half-hearted attempt to fix it up. He said, "Is my sin so great you can't help me out, God? You know how to control the whole world, and my sin is so too great to bear." And God, he repents a little bit, and God accepts it to a degree, because it was only partial repentance. And he's given 7 generations of time before he is killed. He is also now afraid that people are going to kill him all the time, because God gives him a sign, various explains what that is, a dog or a sign, various things that he had that protected him, and Cain now lives. But the thing is that after the sin of Adam and Eve had separated. Adam felt he needed to fix the things up, and he worked on himself. And then when he reunites with Chava, they have a child called Shais. In English they call it Seth. Shais is the word of foundation. The world, he's like foundation. The world is going to come from this person called Shais. He's going to be the foundation. Cain's seed will essentially be destroyed, although I'll explain to you when we get to the story of Noah that not fully. But Shais is going to be the one who is going to be the foundation of the world. Now, I'm going to end with one last point, and we'll go from in the chapter of Noah next week, and we'll finish up the story of Bereshit. But I want to just tell you one last thing about this process here. We started with Adam, okay? We have Cain and Abel and Shais, and now we're going to the next generations. Okay, Cain has a son, okay, named Enosh, and something crazy happens that you need to understand. And that is that although Adam and Chava were prophets, the world is going to deteriorate very quickly. There's going to be 10 generations till Noach. And the world starts to go in a very bad path. Okay? God has not revealed the Torah. He's not given the Torah yet. And people have long lives. They have strength. They have power. They have different things. And they misuse it. And we're going to see next week how the generations fall further and further and what their mistakes are, what they do, until they come to Noah. And we're going to see how the world became so corrupt that Noah and his children are the only ones in the whole world at that point that are worthy to be saved. So we're going from the highest highs, from Adam and Eve when they are beams of light, to the fall, and the fall is going to continue. But from the ruins is generally where you see the rebuilding, and that's going to be the rebuilding of the story of Noah. I have some questions here, and I'm going to answer them. Michael says to me, YouTube question, Rabbi Karmi, can you tell us about the mark on Cain's forehead? Yes, so there is different explanations of what the sign was. So there's one explanation was God put a letter from his name. However that looked, there was a letter that, and I think what the deeper meaning of that is the following. It says that animals were always afraid of man. Okay, and it's really strange that animals are afraid of people. When people fall to a lower level, so animals might not be afraid of them. And the Talmud talks about it. It could be that you need two people now, or depends. But there's a certain. What are the animals afraid of? They're afraid of the Tselem Elohim, the divine aspect that's on a person. A person is not as strong as a lion. A person not. But animals generally don't attack because there's a certain thing. Now it could be that today people are on a lower level and you need more people. That's a discussion. But a great holy person. Yes. When Cain sinned, he realized that with his terrible sin of murder, one of the three cardinal sins, he realized his divine aspect had left him, and he was afraid that and the animals would kill him also. So I think the deeper meaning is when it says that God put a letter from his name on his head, I think the deeper meaning is that he gave him a certain aspect of a godly countenance that he would still be protected. Okay, great question. All right, so William's asking a very, very interesting question. How long did Adam and Eve live? And that's a very interesting question. So let me just qualify this 1 second here. There's a great discussion about the ages, how long humanity lived in the early years. Maimonides talks about it, that there were certain exceptions, but that not everyone lived so long. Nachmanides understands that the world was different. The world was totally different. The climate was different. We have, the climate was clearly different. And we'll explain when we get to the story of Noah. And that people were different, therefore they were able to live much longer. So the text says that Adam lived 930 years. Why 930? So there's a very deep teaching. It says that very mystical deep teaching. It says that God said, on the day you eat the fruit, you will die. And so it says, so there's a verse in Psalms that says, one day for Hashem is like 1,000 years for us. So Adam was supposed to live 1,000 years. Why did he live only 930? So there's a teaching that says, a mystical teaching that says that God showed Adam all the future generations that are going to come into the world. And he saw this person who was supposed to come into the world who was very, very great. But he was a stillborn. He didn't come into the world. And Adam said, but this person is so great. He needs to come into the world. So God said, okay, so give him some of your years. So he gave him 70 years, it says. Who was that person? That person was King David, who lived 70 years. So Adam of 930, David's has, according to this mystical teaching, got the other 70, and that's the 1,000. And that's really where the name Adam is actually an acronym. It's an acronym for Adam stands for Aleph is Adam. The Daled is the second letter. Da is for David, and the Mem Adam is for Mashiach, the ultimate descendant of David, who's going to lead the people to the final redemption. So, very good question. Beautiful. Any other questions we have here? Okay. Very good, guys. It was great speaking to you, and we will see you next week, 8:30, and we'll see you then. All right. All the best. Great.